In the early days of HIV, people who got infected would normally get thin, grow thin, and wither away until they die. The disease was then nicknamed the slim disease. I was thinking about this and comparing it to mental illnesses, which I see from time to time in my practice as a Dr BMS, a doctor for body, mind, and soul. And so I thought mental illnesses are also going through a spectrum of change, just like HIV used to be slim disease. And now when some people say they're HIV positive or they're living positively with HIV, and they look so normal, they look so healthy, we ask ourselves, is it true that this person has HIV or they're just taking us for a ride? We had people who have come out in the open to say they have HIV. The famous Assunta Waigura even went on to have children, and some people didn't believe that it is true. But it's Howard, it is true. It just shows that the disease has gone through a spectrum of change in outlook, so that what it was before is not what it is now, and this may confuse some people. Mental illnesses are also going through a certain spectrum of change in outlook. And this is what I would like to talk about today in Dr. BMS. But before I do that, as always, I would urge you to click subscribe button for our channel, Dr. BMS, so that every time we release new educational, informative video like this one I'm doing, you get a notification and you stay ahead in knowledge and information, which is good for the health of your body, mind, and soul. So, mental illnesses are going through a spectrum of change, which we need to recognize so that we do not miss them when they present. Traditionally, or in the past, mental illnesses were a stark contrast to what was considered normal, so that they could be noticed very easily. People who had mental illnesses generally looked very eccentric, they looked bizarre, they looked abnormal, we may say, because of the way they behaved, the way they dressed, the way they lived their lives. These are people who would be loners, for example, removing themselves from family, from society to stay in seclusion for no reason at all, not talking to people or communicating using language or gestures that were not the accepted ones. They could behave abnormally. Sometimes they could dress abnormally. Sometimes they could go naked. They could be disheveled, not well kept, not smart, sleeping rough. They could be antisocial, aggressive, can attack people, can abuse people. Sometimes their behavior was out of tune with what was happening around them. So they talk to themselves, they show abnormal reaction, they can just laugh when there's no reason to do that. They could just wail or shout, they'll scare people. And so it was easy to pick out someone who was abnormal or mentally ill than it is today. So I classify this as the traditional manifestations of mental illnesses from the yesteryears. As society has progressed, and today we are in the 21st century, we are seeing a transformation of mental illnesses such that some of them now are not showing as overtly as the traditional ones I've just described in general. We are seeing a progression where mental illnesses are now showing a bit more covertly as opposed to overtly. And the traditional manifestations still remain. We still have people who you can pick out in society, in the streets, that they could be mentally unstable from the way they are dressed, from where they are living, from how they are talking, how they are behaving in comparison to people around them. But we also now have those ones who you cannot pick out easily. You need to examine very closely and to spend a bit more of time before you can pick them out as maybe people who have mental problem. And these are the covert manifestations that I am referring to. Specifically, we have the phenomena of the modern age of living through a communication age. And the communication age has come with the attribute of people aggregating together in cities, in big villages, and people are able to move from one place to another quickly to communicate in real time. And so this has brought people close together in such a way that they can also be scrutinized more closely than before when they were dispersed. And through this closer scrutiny, we are starting to notice an evolution of the manifestations of mental illnesses in addition to the traditional ones. So, for example, now in my practice, I see people coming into a rehabilitation center and mental health hospital, the Fountain of Hope Treatment Center. And when you look at them from the surface, you wouldn't know that they have any problem. They are smartly dressed, they talk normally, uh, they appear intelligent, in control of their lives on the surface. But as you delve deeper to talk to them, then you start to discover that there are problems, not only psychological, but some of them crossing the border to become mental or psychiatric problems. And some of the manifestations I would like to share with you out there that you can use to see that someone probably needs an evaluation are when someone shows an excessive inclination to doing what normal people do anyway. So, for example, this person could be a person who wants to be very flashy, bombastic with words, with actions, with dressing, behaviors, wants to attract a lot of attention to themselves on social media, in real life. This could be a manifestation of someone who has got a psychological problem that can progress into a mental problem. We also see people who are very obsessed with themselves or with a particular thing around them. They want to control the image which they are seeing. They want to control the people around them, micromanage them so carefully so that they are kind of becoming control freaks. And these are newer manifestations of mental health illnesses we are seeing. We also see people who are obsessed with activities like being out with people, getting acclaimed all the time, being out shopping or in the open spaces, being seen like you're a hero. These are newer manifestations of mental instability we need to watch out for. On social media, for example, some people are all over the space. They post all their activities, daily activities from the time they wake up to the time they sleep, wherever they go at work. We know their children's names, they know the names of their pets, and you look at it and you see this is excessive. It may point to someone who has got a problem that could be a mental illness. We have talked about drug addiction, of course, that normally people would go out and take drugs of recreation, alcohol, other drugs in the traditional societies, but they self-regulated, and society generally was more regulating of this so that you do not neglect your obligations, your duties, because you are losing yourself in hedonism, in pleasure seeking through drugs. But now we are having a liberalization where these controls from society are less, and some people then sink into abusing of drugs, having too much fun. I did a video on hedonism and fun seeking as a characteristic of human beings. But through all this, it may also point to a mental illness. So when you see someone going that road, take a moment to think that perhaps this person has got a problem that needs to be addressed. And society is also not helping us much because of the commercial interest. Sometimes we are pushed into these excesses. There is this advert on TV that satisfy your cravings. And when I look at it, sometimes I amuse myself. Are we just going to satisfy cravings because we have cravings? Or is it not better to manage our cravings? So if you find yourself feeling like you need to satisfy your cravings all the time, be they cravings about recreational drugs, cravings about food, cravings about shopping, cravings about being seen out there and applauded by your friends, cravings about sexual encounters, we see these things. All these cravings that come and want to be satisfied all the time could be a pointer to mental illness. And this is also part of the new spectrum that we are seeing. Then we also have this problem of people who are self-absorbed, too much self-love, so that they spend a lot of time on themselves. They want to appear in a particular way. So they groom themselves, they dress in a flashy way, they behave in a way that they want to attract attention to themselves. Some of these are people who have a borderline mental illness, which, if not managed, can grow into a full blown mental problem. And some of the consequences we see from these newer covert behaviors are when these people come to us as therapists, we diagnose that these persons have got problems with self confidence, self esteem. Some of these people have got anxiety problems they are trying to mask. Sometimes some of these people have got depression, which they are trying to manage, but doing it the wrong way because they don't know any other way until they come to the therapist. And so, you out there, as a viewer of Dr. BMS, Look at yourself, look at your friends, look at your family members. When you see one person or someone who is having behaviors that make you see like they are excessive of something, something is being done excessively, even if this thing on the surface appears to be a good thing, like dressing, like talking to people, making friends, but it looks like there is too much to this. Take a moment to analyze this more, and if need be, seek out help, ask, inquire, because it is some of these small things that over time will accumulate and cause the big mental illnesses we have known over the years from the traditional definition I talked about, the overt ones. And also, it is this little excessive indulgences that will lead some people into abuse of drugs, excessive recreation and abuse of drugs, which then makes a vicious cycle of creating more problems, psychological and mental, and aggravating what was seemingly a small, normal, but too much thing until it becomes a big thing that requires someone to be hospitalized or be seen by a counselor, therapist, because it was not managed, it was covert, not noticed in good time, and not managed. And I think from this, I would like you to be provoked, to think, to be observant, so that when this comes before your eyes, you can notice it in good time and act. Thank you, and see you in the next video.